prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the second live version of the Just Win podcast. We are coming at you after a very surprising win in Baltimore. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer. They are live on the ground in Baltimore after the Raiders win. What do you guys think? What was the scene like after the big win?
It's a happy bunch, you can imagine. I think Tashan was there. We had Maxx Crosby shirtless hugging Mark Davis. Locker room was loud. People were smoking cigars. So, yeah, it's a big win, no doubt.
Yeah, the guys got it fired up, obviously. I mean, you even saw Antonio Pierce look like he gave Tom Telesco a bear hug, after the game. Mark Davis getting the hug. So they're fired up, I mean, they knew coming into this. I mean, they were damn near 10-point underdogs, and they were down by 10 in the fourth quarter and came back, pulled it out. So, huge win for them. Give them a big confidence boost going into the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, the Raiders won collectively when we've all agreed on a game in our prediction. We are 0-2 at the Just Win podcast. And I think we purposely tried to do that so that we could give the Raiders some mojo in this win. But yeah, I mean, I think the Ravens were in control for most of this game. They did what most of us expected. We thought it was going to be a defensive game in which the Ravens would have a bit of an edge because they have Lamar Jackson, and he made a bunch of plays with his legs. And I thought the Raiders didn't pressure him as much as I thought he was going to. Crosby did have a couple sacks, but I think for the most part, they were kind of content with just kind of sitting and making sure he didn't escape the pocket. He had 122 yards rushing last week against the Chiefs. And this week, I think he had like
35,
40 yards.
Yeah,
was
35,
that? 35 yards. Yeah, he had 35 yards. So they definitely did a good job of keeping him within the pocket and not letting him really hurt the Raiders with his legs. And then late in the game, the offense kind of came to life. I mean, what do you guys think about how they came to life? Did they kind of talk about any adjustments they made?
Not really. I think the main thing was just like get Davante the ball and get Brock Bowers the ball, and pretty much that's what happened. I think those guys definitely showed they can beat a lot of coverages and make big plays. I think they had 19 catches combined. I think I wrote Davante had 4 catches for 86 yards in the last 11 minutes. So, he's a big-time player. Sometimes I think you get discouraged or look at the coverage, and maybe quarterbacks don't throw him the ball as much. But like Gardner and he both said today, even if he's covered, sometimes you still got to find a way to get him the ball, and he'll make plays. And he did, not only the catches, but also the pass interference call. That was huge. That was pretty much the game right there. That call goes the other way, or there's no call. The Raiders lose this game. So I think that pass interference call was a big one. And again, an example where a veteran guy who knows how to make plays can not only hurt you by making catches, but also by drawing flags.
Yeah, I mean, it's, from an offensive standpoint, they couldn't establish a run again in this one. I mean, they had 17 carries for 27 yards. I thought their offensive line between the two, they struggled the most in pass protection. I mean, Gardner Minshew was sacked a few times, but there were a few more where he had to escape the pocket to avoid additional sacks. I thought both of the tackles struggled a lot in this one, Thayer Munford and Colton Miller. And so basically they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't really pass protect that much. And they just basically fuck it, throw it to Davante and Brock Bowers, and worked pretty well in the second half. I mean, I think that was pretty incredible performance by Davante, especially down the stretch in that fourth quarter. He had a few grabs that, he's Davante Adams. We see him do amazing stuff every week, but even for him, it was an impressive run. And Gardner Minshew, he was on the money. I mean, he completed damn near 80% of his passes. I think when you combine that with the fact that they couldn't run the ball, and he was pretty consistently under pressure with the offensive line playing the way it did, I thought it was a really strong performance from him. I didn't think he played poorly in week 1, but it was definitely a step forward in week 2. And so you saw a little bit of the potential of the passing game. Obviously, ideally they want it to be more balanced. They don't want to run for 20 yards every week. I don't think that's a sustainable formula for the offense, but they showed toward the end of the game that when it's money time and they need to go make a play, they can. And so that gives you a lot of optimism moving forward.
It was a great turnaround. I mean, they had 43 yards of offense in the first half, and Gardner had that really ugly interception. So to go from there to here we are talking about, a great second half, and he played really well, and you got Davante Adams involved. So definitely, like he said afterwards, we have some momentum now, and this is who we can be. This is the offense we can be going forward. So the confidence is a huge deal in this game, I think, and him getting some more with Davante and vice versa, and Brock Bowers and the pieces they have in terms of the passing game, clearly – they feel they're back on track now.
Yeah, I think Minshew's a frustrating quarterback to watch because in the first half, I mean, there's opportunities on the field.
His job at halftime, weren't you? On Twitter, you were calling for his job at halftime.
Yeah, he's tweeting out the AOC meme and all this. Look at this guy. It was Ted on the hot. It was obviously it was Ted on the hot mic. It was Ted on the hot mic. We got a guy.
I wasn't there. Okay, that was not me on the hot mic. I saw that comment on YouTube. I wasn't even at the press conference. So don't even get that started.
I don't know.
But I mean, look. I mean, that's Gardner Minshew. He has very low lows, and his highs can be very high, as we saw at the end of the half. But he leaves opportunities on the fields, and like he just if you know the offensive line is bad, sometimes he just holds onto the ball a little too long. But obviously, in the second half, it worked out. That interception was pretty ugly too. And about the run game, I think they just kind of realized like this run game is not happening. We're just wasting reps whenever we run the ball, and nobody respects the run game. They're still lining up in too high and light personnel. So even when you're running the ball, you're not getting teams to respect you and give you some play action shots and maybe put some heavier guys on the field. So I think in the second half, they just, they were down but just getting to the pass earlier, not putting themselves in a situation where you have to pass on 2nd and 10 and 3rd and 10, became a little bit more advantageous for them.
Yeah, just go 4 wide, man. Screw it. Go 4 wide the whole game.
I mean, Brock Bowers is one of your wides, then,
yes.
do it.
It did seem like that, because I think part of the issue last week and even in the first half, like you said, teams playing a lot of too high. It seemed like they were singling up Davante more in the second half. Like a couple of those sideline catches, they didn't have safety help over the top. I think one of them might have been a whole shot for Minshew where he got it in between the cornerback and the safety before he could get there. But I don't know why the Ravens thought that they could leave Davante Adams in single coverage and that'd be a good idea, but they took advantage of that matchup down the stretch, obviously.
Yeah, I think, as you get a bigger lead, anytime you double somebody, you're leaving somebody else one-on-one. So maybe the thought is we're just going to kind of sit back in coverage and just play our regular coverage and let them get whatever underneath. Obviously, they hit a couple big ones to Davante. And there have been opportunities for Davante to go deep that they haven't connected on yet. But to Gardner's credit, he hit Davante perfectly on that fade pass on that last drive to really get them in position to win the game. And he also missed one badly when I think it was a drive before in the red zone where it looked like a drop. I mean, it was a drop, but I mean, that's a very, very difficult adjustment to make when you're fading away. So the deep ball has to be something that they connect on better and more frequently, especially getting to that back shoulder throw where Davante is so good. That's some chemistry that they have to build together with just more practice time and experience together. But I mean, that's a huge tool for the offense. And obviously, Brock Bowers breaking out is huge. I mean, I think Michael Mayer has his role in his offense, and he had a few nice catches in this game too. But he's just not that big play tight end like we saw Bowers is. And his biggest catch was the one that set them up around the 5-yard line where Gardner stepped up against pressure. He got outside the pocket, and Bowers. He was covered when Minshew was breaking the pocket. And rather than giving up, I think a lot of players would have gave up on that point because the safety pretty much had him held, didn't let him inside. He worked his way back to Gardner Minshew, which was a very heady play. And Minshew threw it to a spot where he could come back a little further, caught the ball on the 5-yard line. And that was one of the biggest plays of the game.
Yeah, there's a reason why he was a big star in Georgia and why he was a first-round pick. I mean, the guy runs good routes, he's explosive, and he's tough. And he definitely can break tackles and get you a lot of yards after catch. So I think we're only scratching the surface. That's why I think the Raiders are pretty excited about what they have going forward, because obviously the running game is something they got to figure out. But you have a guy who's emerging as a big-time playmaker along with Davante Adams. And Jacoby Myers is no slouch. Jacoby Myers is kind of forgotten here, but he's shown he's definitely a guy who can make plays for you as well. But I think Bowers today, again, another step up where you can see just what this offense can be if he really starts to really flourish.
Yeah, I think they just got to consistently feed those two guys the ball. I think, there's something in the first half. They only had 7 targets combined between Bowers and Adams. Second half, they had 14 targets combined. And so they doubled it up. They got over that you set, Vic. They won the game. They listened to you. They heard the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, Oh, it's tremendous.
It sounds like simple and almost like, like you're talking down to these teams, but it's like, just give your best players the ball. We see them go these long stretches. It happened so often last season where they just wouldn't throw Davante Adams the ball. And it's like they forget that he's good or something. And so what they did in the second half, maybe he's not going to get 9 targets every half. It doesn't always have to be that, but you can't go these long stretches where he's just not seeing the ball. And I think same goes for Brock Bowers. I think he showed himself to be a high-level playmaker already.
Hey, here's some advice for our former guest, Luke Getsy. From now on, third downs, there's 2 reads. There's Davante, and Bowers. That's it. That's all. One, you got to do one or the other. That's it. Nobody else. Third down. Every third down. I guarantee success.
He's built an entire offense on that.
Yeah.
Kelsey and Hill for a long time. You just put Kelsey on. You line up in a formation where Kelsey's isolated, and you put Davante in the slot, and that weak side safety has to pick. He's going to stay with the tight end on one side, or he's going to help with the number 3 receiver on a crosser. So you can build a whole offense like that.
You're welcome, Luke.
You got it.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum, but I mean, I think the 12 personnel thing is just kind of not dead, but it's not going to be a prominent part of his offense as we thought it was going to be, because they're just not going to run the ball with 12 personnel, and I think they kind of figured they're going to have roles. Mayer is going to come in a little bit more when they try to run the ball, and maybe short yardage situations, and Bowers is going to be that guy when they're in 11 personnel. He's going to be their tight end 11 personnel, and until they can figure out a way to run the ball and create some more matchup advantages that way, we're just going to see them run 12 around 10, 15 snaps a game. I just don't see it being a bigger part of the offense for now.
Yeah, I mean, like, as long as the offensive line is playing the way it's playing right now, which is pretty bad, like, they're going to be a pass-first offense and run second. We thought it was going to be reverse going into the season, but I think the offensive line has been we were a little bit concerned about it, I think, going into the year, but I think it's been worse than we probably imagined. So they had to adjust to that. But, I mean, ultimately, it really doesn't – if you put up points, they don't really care if they throw the ball more or run the ball more. And so 26 points, I think that's, a solid number for them. They can get around there every week. Then they got to throw the ball 40 times, so be it. So I don't think they really care either way. Obviously, you want the offensive line to be better, but, offense got the job done today.
Yeah, I will say it's a hard formula to replicate moving forward. Like, you're just going to keep passing until the pass rush gets tired, and then once it gets tired, and it kind of worked. I mean, Derek Carr had a year like that where the offensive line was really bad, and they would just keep passing and passing and passing, and then at the end of the game, when the pass rush finally gets tired, that's when they start hitting these big chunk plays, and it's kind of a tough formula to replicate. But I mean, I think offensively, that's what the Raiders have to do. But they have the defense to keep them in the game long enough for them to kind of take off in the fourth quarter if they're able to pull it off. I think ideally, obviously, as a defensive-minded head coach, Antonio Pierce would love for them to run the ball better. But I think at this point, they have to kind of give in to their identity as it is right now.
So not so fast. I think you got a get-well game next week. You play the worst team in the league at home, the Panthers. O-line gets better. Running game gets better. Everybody gets on track. It's week 3 of the new running scheme. So I think next week we'll give them a chance to kind of really work on these things that have been, weaknesses so far and kind of get them a little better. So I think the running game, there's hope for it next week against the Panthers. And then ideally, week 4 is the Browns are definitely much tougher defensively. But at least next week you have a chance to get your confidence back up as far as being able to run the ball once in a while when you have to.
Yeah, and I think we saw them. They started to play around with the offensive line in this game. Jackson Powers-Johnson, he didn't play this week. He was questionable due to an illness. They ruled him out before kickoff. And they started Cody Whitehair left guard in week 1, but this week they started the game with Andrews Pete in at left guard. He spent most of the offseason working at left tackle while Colton Miller was out, but had him in there at left guard. Don't think they liked what they saw in the first half, so they switched to Whitehair in the second half. I don't really think that made life any better for them in the run game, but they got some shit to figure out with the offensive line. I mean, Colton Miller's really been struggling his first 2 games back from shoulder surgery. I thought Thayer Munford, he played well in week 1, but this game was pretty rough for him. Dylan Parham, Andre James, they aren't playing well either. So it'd be interesting to see moving forward, do they continue to give this group more run? Obviously, they hope that Powers Johnson is able to come back soon, but, we don't know what his timeline is in terms of him being close to returning. But wonder at some point if they'll start shuffling the O-line a little bit more if they can start getting some better play out this unit.
Yeah, based on what's happened, it seems like if Jackson Powers Johnson has a pulse when he comes back, he'll probably be a starter.
Wow. Yeah, the bar is not very high at this point, and maybe you can bring Gabe Jackson on every time or something. But clearly they're going to maybe find some people off the street at some point. But again, next week the Panthers are here. It's all positive. O-line gets better next week, and you build off that. Get some confidence going.
Yeah, and last bit about the offense, that final play call, they actually went back. You remember that play call they had on the 4th down when they failed on their own 30-yard line?
Last week?
It was a run play where they motioned Michael Mayer in to be a fullback. Last week against the Chargers, from their own 30-yard line, they tried to go for that 4th down. They got stuffed in the backfield. Colton Miller didn't get off the ball. So they went back in that same action on that 1st and goal play, faked the run play, and Davante Adams did a great acting job on that play. He faked like he was stock blocking for a second. Marlon Humphrey looked inside and took off, and everybody bit on the play fake. I think everybody saw that formation and kind of remembered, last time they went into this formation, they ran the ball, and good play call and nice design by Luke Getsy on that play.
So Davante was saying didn't kind of go off the way they wanted to. There still was a problem with the leverage, and it kind of was not the way they drew it up. But it worked out well. The throw wasn't that great. They kind of snagged it. But the results, all that matters. But it still wasn't what they had in mind when they drew it up. But again, as long as you get in there, it doesn't matter what
I think ideally he would be able to win inside, where everybody, there's a huge void because everybody's getting, pulling up towards the play fake. But Marlon Humphrey was playing really far inside, and Adams, I think he probably ad-libbed and went downfield and got open anyways for the touchdown. But I mean, it worked in the sense of everybody was fooled.
Yeah.
And they were able to make a play. Defensively, what do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's a really good defense. Like we saw that. I mean, today they did a nice job. We mentioned about Lamar Jackson kind of being contained. Maxx Crosby was a force as always. Robert Spillane had 2 big plays at the INT and also a pass breakup that was huge later on. And he's played really well. He's been probably, I guess your second best player in defense the first 2 games. He's really been a bright spot. The safeties were a little iffy at times, but again, didn't hurt him too much. But I will say Lamar also missed a couple throws that could have hurt him. That's been a problem for him the last 2 weeks. But I think just this team has its stars in defense, and Max and Christian Wilkins and the guys are playing around them pretty well. And Spillane definitely is also almost on that level, I'd say, the first 2 weeks. So it's a really good defense as advertised. It just kind of, it's definitely kept them in the game the first half for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game for Maxx Crosby. 6 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He even had a pass breakup to help get a stop there. And he said after the game, he kind of took this one personally. Us along with many others were very down on them after week 1, understandably so. But he sort of internalized it and used it as motivation coming into this one, and translated into a pretty huge performance. He's the leader of this team and his defense, and I would say pretty much took over this game down the stretch. He had that huge sack, Lamar Jackson, to start that second to last drive that the Ravens had, where they could have went and tied the game, and that pretty much knocked them back. And then they had the shank punt, and that helped set up Daniel Carlson's eventual game winning field goal. And Robert Spillane as well. We've given him a lot of credit for what he does in the run game. I think he had 10 tackles in this game, but in pass defense, I mean, I know it was a deflected ball, but still had the awareness to have that interception in the 3rd quarter. And then in the 4th quarter, he had a big pass breakup on a 3rd down that helped him get off the field. And so like Vic said, I think those guys have been the two best players on defense. But even Jack Jones on that final drive, I think Isaiah Likely, there was a chance he could have made that catch pretty deep in the Raiders' territory, and that could have potentially set up a game time field goal for the Ravens. But Jack Jones, I asked him after the game. He said he didn't even see Likely on that play. He was jumping up trying to pick it off, and suddenly this big guy number 80 was trying to catch the ball, and he knocked it out of his hands. But pretty heads up play. I mean, if Tucker, I know he's missed a couple this year, but he's one of the best kickers in the league. Like, they could have potentially tied the game there, and helped them seal the win. So I think it was complete effort, at all three levels from the defense today.
By the way, Tucker just fell off the map lately. So he's 1 of 8 from 50-yard field goals or beyond in his last 9 kicks. Kind of crazy how he was no question top of the league kicker, and now very, very shaky long distance kicker. But I agree with you. I think Robert Spillane's been great. I mean, the second season in pass coverage, especially, like, this guy's all over the field. And that interception he made, did a good job of closing on a ball. And anytime you're near the ball, good things happen. Ball got tipped, and he was able to catch it for a huge play in the second half. And on that third down knockdown he had, the Raiders blitzed. They blitzed Lamar Jackson. I think the reasoning was they're trying to get a lot of bodies around him, so he couldn't escape. And the receiver, I think it was Zay Flowers, he won inside leverage, so he looked like he was open. But Epps actually did a pretty good job. I think the call was for Epps not to play deep and for him to play flat-footed. When I talked to Patrick Graham, he had a similar call that he used against the Chiefs, where it looks like cover 1 with a deep safety, but that deep safety is actually playing flat-footed, and he's going to try to drive on anything coming down. And Flowers looked like he was open. I think Epps would have probably put a big hit on him or be able to knock down a pass, even if it got through. But they blitzed Jackson. They did a good job of just containing him and surrounding him. And Spillane got his hand up in the last second and knocked the pass down. So huge play by him. And I also want to shout out the corners. I thought the corners played pretty well. Whenever you're playing Lamar Jackson, you have to cover for a long time. It's just the way it is. Whether it's him escaping the pocket or the defensive ends just kind of sitting outside instead of rushing, he's going to have more time than a normal quarterback. And I thought Jacorian Bennett was really sticky. He had at least one pass breakdown I saw. Yeah. But yeah, and he was just really sticky on the receivers. Jack Jones, I thought, made plays. And he also had a big tackle where, I think Lamar Jackson was trying to keep it on an option play, and he came off his guy and made a big tackle in the backfield. So corner made some plays this game, and yes, Blaine was really good as well. So defense stepped up again. It kind of looked like a situation where the defense might wear out in the fourth quarter again because the offense isn't doing much, but they stepped up and got stops when they needed to.
Yeah, I think even, Christian Wilkins didn't have a big game or anything, but we saw a little bit of the impact of his presence on that final sack by Crosby, because they kind of ran a game where Crosby stunted inside, and obviously you have to worry about Wilkins as a threat. And I mean, you don't really see too many plays where Crosby basically goes untouched, and he was able to on that last sack on Jackson that helped get them off the field. And so, like I said, I think all three levels, great performance by the defense. That's obviously the strength of this team, but helps a lot when their offense can match them. And I think we saw them play complementary football for the first time this season in that fourth quarter. And so moving forward, the goal is to, of course, try to replicate that over the course of a full game, so they don't necessarily have to pull these 10-point comebacks at the end of games. I think you saw Antonio Pierce said that in his post-game locker room speech to the team. He's like, let's stop making it so fucking hard on ourselves. And they don't want it to have to be a dramatic comeback every week, but in order for that to be the case, they're going to have to play complementary football on a more regular basis. And so we'll see if they're able to start doing that next week against the Panthers.
Hey, going back to Spillane, I was going to say, it just shows you again how important like a fresh scenery is to a player. Like in Pittsburgh, he's kind of strictly a downhill player, was not viewed as a guy in pass coverage. They're kind of like, I don't know if they soured on him, but they're kind of like, this is all he is. Didn't really want to bring him back, and he got rejuvenated here in Vegas with Antonio Pierce, linebacker coach at the time, Maxx Crosby, that kind of became kind of kindred spirits, and just guy who feeds into that Raider mentality, the old school Raider. Definitely he 24/7 football guy who loves playing here and just a guy who's gotten better since he first showed up in pass coverage last offseason. Worked harder than that. This year he's reading plays really well and kind of anticipating what's going to happen and just kind of making plays. And he kind of is, Diablo's kind of struggled a little bit here with some missed tackles, but I think Spillane definitely has covered for him and also kind of just, again, like I said, really play at a very high level.
Yeah, and anytime you have like a super athlete linebacker that kind of is a little slow on his reads, might miss tackles, you have to have that solid vet next to him. Patrick Queen had that with Roquan Smith. Tampa Bay had that with Devin White, and I'm blanking on his name right now. Who's the other Tampa Bay linebacker?
Doesn't matter.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
You get the idea. He's going to be a Hall of Fame linebacker probably. But it just helps to have that solid veteran next to him that kind of could like clean up after him, make sure he's in the right places, and that sort of deal. So, great win. Great win for the Raiders, and they avoid the dreaded 0-2 hole. That's very, very hard to come back from. Statistically, it's very hard to make the playoffs when you fall into that 0-2 hole, and they did it on the road against a very, very good Baltimore Ravens team. I think it's a huge game for Antonio Pierce, keeping the belief up, and big game for Davante Adams. I mean, it's very easy for him to get frustrated, in this offense, not getting the ball, but then he blows up at the end of the game. And Brock Bowers first, it's great to see your first round pick making plays like that for you to win this game.
Yeah, great win for him. I see Raiders Solo's guy in the comments saying, didn't I say they were going to get routed? Everybody did. 10-point underdogs. What the fuck are you talking about? Nobody.
Not me. I gave them +4. I gave them +4.
Congrats. You picked them losing by a close margin. Wow, congrats. Anyway, that's a good segue to get into the questions from the fans.
All right, so let's get into questions. From Twisted Kister, Crosby was limping pretty heavily on the last couple of plays. Anything noticeable walking off the field?
In the locker room, he had a pretty noticeable limp. We know Maxx Crosby is as tough as they come. He played through knee injuries and thumb injury last season and ended up having off-season surgery. And so we don't know, if it's anything significant or anything of that nature. Like, they can't tell that until they get the chance to do a lot of testing and all that. But if he can play through it, he's going to play through it. We know that. But, obviously the Raiders are hopeful that it's not something that's too significant moving forward.
Sorry, I'm texting somebody. Go ahead.
Look, Crosby's going to play unless he's missing a leg, and he might even play. Actually, he kind of played through a situation like that last year. So, I don't think I'd be too worried about Crosby playing. Next question by Nazo Nazario. When is the missed tackling by Diablo going to be addressed? He was really bailed out by Spillane a lot in this game. Imagine having a second accountable, disciplined linebacker.
Yeah, I think we saw Diablo's snaps kind of went down a little bit in this game. I do agree that he's kind of had a rough start to the season. A couple of those big runs that they gave up against the Chargers last week, he was either mistimed his blitz or he wasn't in the right gap. He's missed a few tackles. It happened again today, and he only played. Robert Spillane played every snap pretty much for them, but it looks like Davante Diablo only played 43. So we saw a little bit of Luke Masterson come in this game. I think we also saw them use their big nickel package a little bit more with Isaiah Pulamau coming in as well, the safety. Nate Hobbs, of course, always plays a lot at nickel back. And so seems like, his playing time went down a little bit. So I don't think they're just going to keep him out there if he continues to make these mistakes. But in terms of true linebackers, it seemed like Masterson would probably be a guy to get to next role if they end up having to sit down Diablo a little bit.
Yeah, so it seems like they already have addressed this, him missing tackles and assignments or whatnot. And they'll continue to if he continues to miss tackles. So we'll see how it goes. JV asks, how much more time does Colton Miller need before getting into season shape? Seems like time off is still affecting him.
Yeah, I mean, if it's rust,
I don't know if he's out of shape, but it definitely seems like the nature of his injury is affecting his play. Vic, I think you said you talked to Khalil Mack after the game, or Khalil Mack made a comment about attacking that shoulder.
Yeah, so Khalil told me, I'm not sure what the plan was today, but I'm not sure that was, I'd say it was more like he just got beat right away. I'm not sure it was power moves or anything, but clearly there's some rust. I don't think he's still feeling the effects of the injury. He says he feels fine, and that's an indication for everybody else on staff. So I think it's just rust and kind of, I mean, maybe it's tough games on the road against tough guys, but clearly he's not the guy he needs to be for his offense to be what it wants to be. So, and again, you have to have confidence he can turn it around based on his previous play, and it's just a slow start for a guy coming off shoulder surgery. So we'll see. Definitely bears watching, but not a good first 2 games for Colton.
Yeah, I mean, first play of the game, I mean, he just gets beat really badly by Owe and gave up a sack there, and whether it's run blocking or pass protection, I think he's struggling. It's not just him. I mean, I think it's the offensive line collectively, but you did think that he would be the strength of it. I mean, he's been their best offensive lineman for quite some time now, but it was a significant injury. I mean, it limited him, towards the end of last season, caused him missing games, and shoulder surgery isn't a small thing, and so it may take him some time to get back to the player he was before.
Yeah, I think he's just gotten every year seems like he gets a little bit better at something. Last year I thought he really took a step up as far as his run blocking. So I just have a lot of faith that he's going to turn it around. Whether it's him not being in shape, whether it's the shoulder healing, whether it's a timing issue, whether it's him learning his offense, he'll get it together. I don't think it's going to look like this for much longer. Maybe it'll take a game or two till he really kind of gets back into it. But I have faith in Colton Miller just being one of the more solid tackles in this league. Next question from GL Raider: does this win change your outlook on this season?
I guess. I mean, I thought they, even if they lost today, and I think we called it a must-cover game before. I just had to make some improvements, get better. I thought it'd be a tough place to play. I thought it'd be a close game, but I thought even if you were 0-2, you have a chance to win at home against the Panthers and Browns. I mean, 2-2, and I think you're fine at 2-2, where you're kind of where you want to be and not in a bad shape. So, but definitely this changes it. Definitely gives us some momentum ahead of schedule. Now you're 1-1. You have a chance to be 3-1 after 2 home games. So definitely they're in a much better spot than they were. So. And it just shows you like the growth of Minshew and Adams and Bowers kind of they took a big step today. And that was key because in the first half the offense was terrible. So it changes my perceptions. I think they have a better shot now. Obviously getting to being in the playoff mix and kind of being a team that can be reckoned with going forward.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, Panthers are probably the worst team in the league. So I guess you can never pencil in a win in NFL, but that seems like pretty much a lock. And then the Browns, I know they won and they're 1-1 today, but their offense still hasn't impressed me. And with the way this Raiders defense has played, you would think they would do a pretty good job of being able to lock them up. And so, like you said, back-to-back home games, they have a pretty good shot of getting to 3-1. And at that point, you're pretty thick in the playoff race. And so, definitely changed the outlook. At least early in the season. Of course, it's a long year. 17 games, and so hard to project too far down the road. But definitely a huge bounce back win for them.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is this offense showed that they can move the ball, and there's explosive potential when they can get some blocking and when they get some time and get the ball downfield to their weapons. I mean, last week was very, very bad. The first half of this game was bad, but they showed Minshew can make some throws, and when he has time, he can get the ball down to Davante, and Bowers looks like a legitimate weapon. So I think that if the offense can get somewhere to the middle of the pack, then I think this team could challenge for a playoff spot. But they just can't be bottom of the league and expect the defense to bail them out every week. And this game showed that this offense can do some things. Next question from No Name: do you think that the offense should switch to a power run scheme moving forward? White doesn't seem like the back for outside zone.
Yeah, I don't see them making like a massive blocking scheme change or anything of that nature. I think the whether it was whatever blocking scheme they're using, like the offensive linemen are just getting the ass kicked right now. So I don't think that's suddenly going to make it magic for them. And I don't really put too much on White or Alexander Madison for the run game struggles. Like they're not Josh Jacobs, like that's obvious. But like we knew going into the season that they're not Josh Jacobs, and so it was going to have to be more reliant on the offensive line clearing lanes for them. And so far they haven't. And so I mean, I don't put too much on the running backs, honestly, for the run game being as bad as it's been so far.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, this line should be good fit for this scheme, for the wide zone scheme. They're lighter guys, quicker guys, not heavier guys. I mean, Dylan Parham, Andre James. I mean, guys who can get out and move a little bit. So I think the hope is that it's going to take a while to click. And again, it doesn't need to click to be a top running game in the league. It's got to be like Tashan said, decent. So I think ideally we'll see some progress against the Panthers and go from there. And at some point, you would hope JPJ is back and gives them a little boost at the guard spot. So I think, I mean, if you're a Raiders fan and want to be positive and hold out hope, then just think it's going to take time for the scheme to click. And I think the linemen are not great, but they definitely seem like they're kind of suited for the scheme more so than a power scheme.
Yeah, I agree. I think we talked about this before the season. It's going to take some time. It's going to take them learning the calls, learning what each other are going to do on each play, when you're going to get off the double teams. All those things take timing and reps. And this might not even be the final starting offensive line. So we'll see how it goes. But I think making a scheme change at this early is a little reactive. Also, the Luke Getsy comes from an outside zone background. The offensive line coach comes from a outside zone background. I don't think they have maulers on the offensive line to run a power scheme. So I don't think you change the scheme primarily because of the running back.
And also, you can see they played two pretty tough defenses, coached by the Tarbaugh brothers are pretty good on the road. So I think, again, if you want to make excuses and have hopes for the future, you can. Just it's not been good enough so far, but the hope is that it gets better. And I think there's some reasons for optimism. But again, we'll have to see it next week.
All right. So any more questions?
One more?
One more?
It's mostly a lot of offensive line. It's a lot of we've talked about that.
All right. Actually, man, go. Let's start drinking.
Yeah, let's end it on a positive note.
Yeah, positive. Yeah, the hope
Send
is
us on.
next week, man.
All right.
Running game gets going. Run scheme. It's all good.
So big win. Offense picked it up at the end. Defense continues to look good. Raiders coming home to face the worst team in the league. So, they have a chance of getting a winning record after 3 weeks. That's huge.
And we get to end the jinx because we're all going to pick them to win, and they are going to win. So all this jinx talk will be over.
One of us has to pick.
We're breaking the curse next week. We're breaking the curse
no
next
one's
week.
picking the fucking
If we all pick them to win, the fans are going to kick our ass. You ready to fight?
I'm ready to fight. Let's go.
All right,
Let's go.
We're all picking them to win.
The jinx ends next week. It's over.
All right. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
All right, y'all.
Hasta la vista.